whatever I received during that time was instrumental in giving me the necessary confidence. Yeah, so I mean, dreams do change, right? I mean, that's the thing. So the problem is genuine. Started with being an astronaut, then moved to being a cricketer. अगर शेयर चैट छोड़ के कहीं जाता है तो startup ही करना है. What is an asset class?
Hello and welcome everyone to the latest episode of IRE Talks powered by GIBS Business School. Today we will be exploring the mesmerizing story of Ivy Homes co-founder Mr. Pritam Thakur, who has reimagined the way houses are sold in modern India. I am Palak Bansal, your host for today's latest episode of IRE Talks powered by GI Business School, where innovation meets inspiration. Hi Pritam, welcome to IRE Talks. And before we delve into your story, could you tell us a little about your early life and your educational background, where it all started?
Great, Palak. First of all, thank you very much for having me. Like, it's really a great pleasure. Talking about my background, so I was born in West Bengal and then spent my entire childhood in Calcutta. In this place called Behala. So the entire upbringing, the education, everything that happened till the age of 18 was very, very curated to the Kolkata culture. Everything around me was very Bengali, to be very honest. I was very fortunate to receive a good degree of education. Okay, I was very fortunate there to ensure that I received the necessary training and coaching that landed me in a good engineering college, that's IIT Kanpur. So that's more or less me, like talking about the early background. And I come from a family where it's not a business family, to be very honest. So the expectation in the very beginning was very specific and very stereotypical, as in you have to be good in academics, you have to score good marks, more specific to science and maths. So that's how most of the Indians would be thinking. So that was me in my childhood days. 18 years I end up in IIT Kanpur. The probably one of the best things that happened to me. And there was the time when I ended up meeting a bunch of people. The course curriculum was such that kind of brings a lot of character in you, I would say, and that gives you that hustling spirit that let's figure out your way and let's do everything in my power to ensure that you reach the desired and necessary result. And more specifically, I would say that it was the people that I ended up meeting, mostly friends, seniors, juniors, who helped me shape my life going forward. Whatever I received during that time was instrumental in giving me the necessary confidence, in giving me that necessary boost to take a leap of faith and go into the business world. Something which definitely I did not imagine while I was a child, like being a business person. So yeah, that's a little bit about my early life. Yep.
So as you said, Pritam, the stereotypical expectations of being academically strong. So I'm assuming you were always the top 3 students.
Well, I was not bad, so
I did go through your LinkedIn.
Right.
97%.
That was history. Like, that seems to be a very different world altogether. To be very honest, if I have to give that now, it will be very difficult to crack it. Because definitely with age you end up becoming a bit dumber, so probably that's what's happening. But that was a different world, and more so, yes, what was expected out of a good student, I was able to meet that. And thanks to a lot of my teachers who helped me go there, so I did end up meeting a lot of expectations.
So, as a kid, when you look, you have a lot of dreams. You dream of, aim of becoming something. What was that young Pritam's dream of becoming, if not an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I mean, dreams do change, right? I mean, that's the thing. I guess that's the thing with most of the people. So I guess that very initially it started with being an astronaut, then moved to being a cricketer, and then you realize ki acha, this is not your cup of tea. And then I think there was also a time when I wanted to be a singer, but I just had to listen to my recording once to figure out that that's not my cup of tea. So it has been a lot, like that was till the age of 10, 12. Post that, actually what ends up happening that the school and your environment and the system ends up getting a lot of sense in you. And when you start coming to your senses, you are like, ki theek hai, try to figure out what you are good at. So considering that again, because as I said that fortunately I was meeting a certain degree of expectation as far as academics was concerned in school. So definitely at that point in time, the expectation and the dream ended up becoming, chalo, let's go for higher studies, let's try to learn more. Then gradually as dreams keep on evolving, probably in the 9-10 standards, I was thinking that okay, the next step would be to go to a good engineering college, then probably go for a good business school either inside India or outside India. And funny part, you have no idea what business school is about, but you are thinking because you are getting conditioned that way. So then, as I was saying, right, the entire dream and the entire ambition ended up getting curated as to what's expected out of someone who is a good student. Go to engineering, then go to B school. And in between, I also started thinking, ki, okay, it's either B school or go for masters, having absolutely no idea that those two are very different paths. So you are like kind of thinking both because everyone around you is talking that and everyone around you is thinking that way. So that was the mindset which I had, ki, acha chalo, it's time to be a good student, to read more, to excel in academics. But I think very opposite to that ended up happening because पढ़ाई लिखाई उतनी नहीं करी शायद जितना करना चाहिए था.
Okay, so how would you describe your early career life? Like where again, that one milestone where it all started, where you transitioned into a professional from a student's perspective.
Yeah. See, transitioning from student to profession was, for me, I would say kind of a fairy tale. And fairy tale, contrary to the popular opinion, has both the good side and the bad side as well. So not the typical fairy tale one, but how fairy tale actually should be. What ended up happening was I got placed on day one in campus. That was quite a very enthralling moment, and the role was in data analytics. First thing first, I'm very, very fortunate and I have nothing but gratitude to the first company that decided to take me. And as I was saying, right, it's in data analytics. So the last semester was a celebration because, chalo, you are placed now. Now you can chill out a little bit. So I ended up going to Gurgaon, and wahan pe what had happened was that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and this is a development that shaped, this is a mindset and thinking that shaped while I was back in college. So in the first couple of weeks, I ended up thinking that, okay, probably this is a good job, but not something which I would want to do for a long time. It was an excellent role, to be very honest, but definitely not something which I thought that I should be doing. So I wanted to join an early stage startup because I felt that, okay, it's the time to learn, because it will give that hustle culture and will let you learn a lot of things. So there, what I ended up doing is I started applying, and couple of months after I got placed, I ended up going to Rocket Internet in Southeast Asia. So I was in Philippines for some time and Indonesia for some time. Now Rocket Internet is a company that has a portfolio of a lot of startups, and the entire idea was that you spend time in one startup, learn about it, contribute to as much as possible, to some extent handle the operations or any kind of strategic role there, and then after a certain period of time you move to another startup. So at that point in time, that was the best thing that could have happened to me, because it was the moment where you know that you want to start up but you don't know where, and post that you also have no idea how to run a startup. It's just another dream that has come up, just like being a cricketer or being a singer. Okay, so it was like that kind of a dream, and for me that was the, as I said, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
So Pritam, today's youth, they are not very much keen on taking up jobs or roles in a startup when it comes to all the big five, or when it comes to well established companies where there's a lot of attraction for the youth in them. So do you think that once in a lifetime every person should have a startup experience like that shapes them, and how did it help you?
See, as far as the youth is concerned, I definitely should not be commenting or making a generic comment, because as far as a young person is concerned, definitely it's necessary to understand the complete story behind that individual to suggest anything relevant. Somebody might want to start up, somebody might want to live in that chaos, somebody might want a more stable and rational approach towards any company, and in my opinion both are fine. Okay, both are fine as long as you have your expectations set, and as long as you are doing what you like doing. So you take up any specific skill set, right? Let's say being a developer or being a coder. You can be a coder in a startup, or you can be a coder in a like FANG company as well, or you can be a coder in Big Four, anything. So the fact is, if you like coding, be a coder. Where you want to be, that to a huge extent depends on what you expect out of life or what your priorities are. So if somebody is thinking that let me join a corporate and let me not go for a startup, definitely respect for that. If somebody wants to join a startup, the fact is, contrary to what might be propagated, it's not an easy journey, because there are two things that comes in a package while you are joining any early stage company. Number one is unfortunately a messed up work-life balance, probably, because you will have to, because the expectation is going to be a lot from you. And not just expectation, the independence that comes with that expectation is going to be a lot from you, because if you do something great, that's going to get reflected in the entire P&L of the company. If you mess up, that's also going to be reflected in that entire P&L of the company. So there is going to be a lot of independence, a lot of responsibility. If you are in charge of a department and things don't go in the right manner, you can't put the blame on someone. So that is something which in the early stage might cause a bit of a mess up when it comes to work-life balance, unfortunately, but the truth. The second thing that is going to come in the package is uncertainty. Like, startups are uncertain, and specifically in today's world, when you open LinkedIn, probably 1 out of 3 posts would be bashing a startup. Yes. That was getting glorified in 2021, because that's how, and it's not just 2021 or 2023 thing, that's how early stage company has been for the last many decades, that there is going to be uncertainty. Definitely the stronger ones survive, but sometimes the market might not work in your favor, because of which the startup might not reach the destined goal. So these are the two things that's going to come in the package. However, on the flip side, the reward is extravagant, because if you are willing to take up these two things, okay, and things end up working in your favor, the output that you are going to get by delivering the same in a startup is going to be multifold more than what you will get from a corporate. But in most of the cases, big companies will not come with these two baggages. So the choice is totally up to you. Because my company is something that is at a very early stage, and we do end up interviewing and talking to a lot of candidates, and we understand that our major competition would be the big corporation, because it requires a great deal of convincing from our end also to ensure that that person ends up joining. But it's also necessary to be truthful that, hey, it's not just the excitement, it's also the uncertainty that you are inheriting. Having said that, overall opinion to all the young generation is that, yeah, like if you guys are in your early 20s, right, there's going to be plenty of time for fun probably. Like, don't compromise on your career or your professional life because you want 2 extra weekends where you want to party. Like, that's a personal opinion. Like, definitely don't have to take it seriously, but this is the time where you have the most amount of energy, and think that where do you want to channelize that energy. Is it going to be in terms of promoting your professional growth or just partying? Like, go take a vacation once in a while, that's completely fine, but every weekend might be a little stretch. Just a personal opinion. So talking about my journey in Rocket Internet, right, the first company for which I stuck for a considerably longer duration was in Philippines. Okay, and again, as I was saying, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because that was a very small scale company. I was one of the first 3 employees there. My immediate manager was a Brazilian guy. I had a very close friend who was an Iranian guy, and then I am an Indian guy. So it was 3 of us who initially started, and then there were a lot of wonderful people from Philippines, like 7-8 wonderful people from Philippines. So that was the initial starting, and it was into carpooling business. So the entire idea was that if you are moving from one part of the city to another part of the city, you can carpool with someone, and the person you are carpooling with can pay you for the gas. So it was a very wonderful and innovative idea. So Philippines was an amazing experience in the sense that you get to see that vibrant Southeast Asian culture.
Yes.
And that free flowing, live free mindset. Okay, so, and at the same time, the fact that I had such amazing colleagues was a cherry on the top. So that was my initial days in Philippines. Then for some time I moved to Jakarta, Indonesia, and then again back to Philippines. So Jakarta was also a continuation of the same life that was happening. I was in Food Panda in Jakarta. That was a company that was delivering, that was very similar to Swiggy back in 2014 and 15. And post Rocket Internet, I was like, okay, this is really amazing, this is really great, I am having a lot of fun. At the same time, I wanted to come back to India as well, because definitely I realized that everybody you were meeting was talking about India being the next big market. Everybody was perceiving India as the land of opportunities, and this was also at a time when I was back in college, right, these startups that I started hearing about was Flipkart, Paytm, Freecharge. This was in 2011-12. And that was the first drive of motivation that, hey, there are new companies that are getting formed in tech. And post that you had Ola, which started becoming popular. I mean, Ola started in 2010, but it was very limited to some very specific cities. Then I used Ola for the first time in 2014. So then it was Ola, Swiggy that was coming in. Zomato had not ventured into food delivery because it was scanning restaurant menu. But all this created an environment where people started thinking that, hey, it's cool to be a part of startup, because the earlier perception about startup was that it's risky. Now it was both risky and cool. So then, given that situation, right, I wanted to come back to India, because as I said that if I have to take that next big step, it's going to be in India. However, I did not know what to do.
So this fascination of startups that you built, looking at all these upcoming budding startups at that point of time, how did it alter your journey moving forward, your career, your professional journey?
Okay, right. So there were like 2-3 things where I segmented that, okay, if you have to take the next step, if you have to be in a position where you are in charge of a company, there are 2-3 factors that you have to take into consideration. Or उस हिसाब से I ended up segmenting them. So one thing is you have to know the market very well. You have to know the customers. And for me, right, thinking from business lenses, India was something about which I had never thought of as a customer. Right. So first thing for me was to know the market, to know India. The second thing was to know the industry. Okay, you have to be an expert in industry, and you have to be an expert when it comes to knowing the people that you are selling to. So while in Rocket Internet, I was like, okay, let me take step by step chance and come back to India, because by that time I was still thinking what to do. So I thought of taking the most traditional approach. Okay, and that is I came back to India and started a very small scale real estate business. This was 4-5 hours drive from Calcutta in this district called Nadia. And what I was doing was building, constructing a building and selling apartments. Okay, so multiple things ended up happening there, because when you are doing something which is so traditional, so basic it seems from outside, but when you delve in, you figure out that, hey, there's so many things about procurement of raw material, dealing with workers, and post that ensuring that you are presentable and then go and sell to your customers.
That's right.
So that to me was knowing the real India in sense, because then your eyes open up and your perspective changes, and you are like, okay, the India that you are thinking about probably is not living in metro city, and that India is living, I mean, it's a combination of everything. I won't glorify by saying that India lives in villages. No, India lives in cities, metro cities, India lives in small towns, India lives in villages. That, so it was indeed a perspective change for me. Then later on, a couple of years into that business, I started contemplating that this is good, okay, and again this is not going that bad. However, at the same time, at that age, I also wanted to be a part of the entire tech revolution that was happening, and for that reason I realized that you have to shift to a metro city, because there's so many development in terms of technology that's going on, because that was also the time when Jio had come into picture, and after Jio came into picture, the entire mindset changed, because not sure if you remember back in 2014-15, internet used to be like 249 rupees for 1 GB.
1 GB, and the
1
speed
GB.
would be in KBs,
Yes,
very,
the
very
speed
slow.
would be in KBs,
5G
and
was
like
not there, yes.
1 GB used to cost 249 rupees. And then after Jio came into picture, I mean, the first 4 months you got it for free, right?
Yes.
And you were like, everybody got a Jio SIM card, I also got a Jio SIM card. So then people started consuming videos more, because before that the way you used to consume was either through text or through WhatsApp messages. So after that it was a realization that hey, it's also time for me to go to a metro city. Again, wanted always, like ever since I graduated, I have always wanted to be a part of the entire startup ecosystem. And so for me, I started exploring that what is the best way moving forward. So that time also, right, there were multiple things I started contemplating. Number one, I thought that hey, option number one is to figure out a way to work in a startup. Option number two is going for an MBA. So I had started preparation also to go for an MBA. And at that time something very interesting happened, which I would say was a stroke of luck. So I ended up receiving a call from Farid. Farid was the co-founder of ShareChat. At that point in time, it was a very, very small startup. I'm talking about back in 2018. They started in 2015. Now, so it's
booming. It's very
huge.
well known. Yes.
Okay, and then he was like, कि क्या कर रहा है? And then I was like, कुछ नहीं, ऐसे ही like चल रहा है. And then he was like कि just drop by Bangalore, like come. I was like कि ठीक है, Bangalore आके क्या करूँगा? He was like कि just come and see, like आके देख के जा क्या होता है. And then I went there with an open mind, thinking कि चलो देखते हैं, because to be very honest, at that point in time, I had known them and I was also in constant touch with him, but I had never thought of the idea of joining a startup that was catering to vernacular audience. Okay, because just a quick note about ShareChat, it's a social media platform that's not in English.
Yes.
Okay, so I had not thought of catering to vernacular audience. But when I came to Bangalore, that was in March of 2018, it was a completely mind-blown thing. And on the first day, so I had not decided to work or anything, and then on the first day I was like, holy crap, this is like amazing, because number one, there were like millions of people using it on a daily basis, and million in India is not a very large proportion, because India has like too many
Huge
people.
population, yes.
And then you're like, so many people are using. And then previously I used to think that ShareChat was about sharing good morning or good evening messages, and that's probably what a lot of people might think today also. But when I actually talked to these guys, it was like a totally new thing, that there is so many things that you can do on the internet, starting from searching for a job to learning new skill to so many things. So then fortunately I ended up joining, and this was it, like normal going to Bangalore, chatting for one day with all the people out there, no formal interview, nothing. They were like ki chalo aa jao. And now when I look back in hindsight, it seems that it ended up taking a lot of courage from their part to give an opportunity to someone who has absolutely no idea about content or social media. So I ended up joining ShareChat in 2018. I heading the content operations team. Quick note about content operation is ShareChat is in multiple languages, so you need a team in each and every language to ensure that these platforms are running properly. Number one, to ensure that there's sanctity in the platform, it's not getting abused. Number two, to ensure that you are in constant touch with the creators who are promoting their content. Number three, because if you have been born and brought up in one part of India, there is a high likelihood that you might not know about the events and festivals in another part of India. Right. So starting from Navratri in Gujarat to Pongal in Tamil Nadu to like Durga Puja in Bengal, you need to be on your toes during each and every of these events. So that's the team which I was handling at ShareChat. Wonderful people, because I told you, right, I got a sense of India when I came back to Bengal, but this was like sense of India max because your colleagues, so because by the virtue of the work and by the virtue of the industry or the kind of work that I was doing, your colleagues, your teammates ended up being from each and every part of India. Like there was a team member from every state. Okay, so that was it. So you get to know a lot about this culture and things. And when you get to know so much about this, right, your appreciation towards different states and culture starts to increase. And then you also get to know the dreams and aspiration of each and every individual and how to communicate with them, how to provide them with whatever they desire in life. So that was ShareChat for me. And quick note, this company has been through a lot of ups and downs, and I was fortunate to be a part of their struggle and their glorification as well, because we saw it go from this to this, and then there was COVID. Because of COVID, it got into a lot of trouble, and then there were a lot of negative news and a lot of things that happened to it. And then later on, because of certain turn of event, COVID itself turned out to be a boom, and then the user base started shooting up. They launched Moj from ShareChat, which I think is the more popular version as of now because it's into short video. So I was fortunate to be a part of that team when Moj was getting launched. So with all these things that ended up happening, right, it was such a jam-packed experience. And the biggest learning lesson for me is that you will have times when people will say good things about you. You will have times when people are going to say bad things about you. And just like all the situation, this too shall pass. Okay.
Yes.
And this is something that applies to all these startups here. So that was my ShareChat journey.
I think this is a very common saying in India. Log kuch to kahenge, you know, it's just that. Whether you're doing good, whether you're doing bad.
आजकल LinkedIn में कुछ ज़्यादा ही कह रहे हैं लोग, ठीक है.
At what point of time, Pritam, did you realize that entrepreneurship was your calling? And how did this idea of IB Homes, sell your house in 15 days, and this is pretty innovative when it comes to a market like India, where you know there's so many things that people consider before buying a house. So how did you research about it? How did you, what kind of background work went into it that this is going to be a marketable idea?
Right. So for IB Homes, right, a lot of things actually had to go right till then for us to come up with the idea of IB Homes. And then this is how it happened, right? So first of all, for me, I had like realized and understood the problem in real estate for a long time. And just to mention, I was doing a small scale real estate building business in West Bengal. That's not in Calcutta, that's 4-5 hours drive from Calcutta. So there the problem is way more intensified.
Yes.
Okay, because you have concerns and you have apprehension at all stages. Starting from that, hey, you are paying me the money, is the money safe? To, let's say, construction quality. Then delivery of time, like timely delivery of the apartment. And later on, if everything goes well, ensuring that there is no legal hassle. Okay, because when you talk about real estate in India, right, the general perception, if you ask a young guy, is that, hey, this is not a profession for gentlemen. Like, that's to a huge extent the perception is. And you pick up anybody, there is a high likelihood that he or she would know a relative who has been cheated in real estate. Okay, so that person would be like, probably half of the people will have relatives who lost money in stocks, but 100% of the people have some relative or something who got a bad experience with real estate. So the problem is genuine, and I had come across this problem and have known this problem statement for even before joining ShareChat, right, as I told you, when I had come back to India. Now that was one part, okay, and then I was also looking for opportunities in terms of what to start up with. And one thing which I want to really note here is the founders at ShareChat, especially Fareed, who is the person who gave me the job at ShareChat in the first place. He has been constantly supportive and extremely encouraging when it comes to startup. Okay, because I had made that expectation clear to him that I want to start a company someday, and he has been nothing but supportive. He's like कि अगर ShareChat छोड़ के कहीं जाता है तो startup ही करना है. Okay, so that thing played a huge part. And now coming to the idea of Ivy Homes, right? So I had known the problem statement, and then real estate was something which fascinated me. Might not be the most interesting thing to say, but the entire bricks construction, the chaos was something which was super fascinating, because when you go through that throughout an entire day, you get a very peaceful night's sleep. So it was very fascinating, it was very interesting, and even though I came to ShareChat, I was in Bangalore, there was a part of me that wanted to be a part of real estate. Now, at that time, right, like one thing I knew is that you need a lot of resources, you need a lot of connect, and it's necessary to build that. So I was exploring different ideas, and it was during ShareChat that I met my present co-founder Abhilash. So the story with Abhilash was, he was running this company called Elanic, which was into fashion e-commerce, and Elanic was acquired by ShareChat back in 2019. That's how he came on board, and that's how I got to know him. So, and we hit off pretty well, and we worked together for like more than a year very closely. So these were the things that were going on, and then COVID happened. Okay, this happened in 2000, and in 2020 everything moved to work from home. So उस टाइम पे मुझे लगा कि अच्छा ठीक है, अब तो सब बंद ही हो गया, अब कुछ नहीं करते हैं, बस जो चल रहा है चलने दो. तो उस टाइम पे I was a part of ShareChat, and then certain things happened that during the time of COVID, most of the people had moved back home, were in home, and I started exploring an idea which was into co-living. Okay, so if you have heard of the popular co-living platforms, Zolo,
yes.
Stanza, like
Living.
You have the fancier one, Houser,
Yes.
Olive, which is a new one, Grexter, FF21, there are like amazing companies out there. So I started exploring the idea of co-living at that point in time. Now, one thing is that I had known the problem of buying and selling in real estate for a long time, and knew that India has a lot of problems. So at that point in time, I really did not get the confidence of venturing into buying and selling. So I thought that, okay, let's lease out a building and then let's rent it out to students and young professionals. So that was the time I had mentioned to the founders of ShareChat that, okay, for me it's now time to move to my next step. He was like, first find your replacement, only then you leave. So it was like two things. I was exploring the idea. I was looking for my replacement. So I had mentioned to them like 6 months back, and I started working on the co-living idea. And in the month of October, I left ShareChat to still explore on that. Coincidentally, at that point in time, I meet Abhilash. Now the point to note here is that for that entire 6 months duration, we were not meeting because it was COVID time. So it was not that you were going to cafes and meeting people. Most of the conversations were happening over phone. So I was in constant touch with Abhilash, my co-founder, and he was working on one idea that was also in real estate. At that point in time, he wanted to build a platform where people could go and see the valuation of property prices in specific localities. Okay. So that was like a super cool thing and a super useful thing, and we were like in constant touch. So at that point in time, he was in Singapore because he went to Singapore before COVID stuck, and then after the lockdown was declared, he was stuck there. So for like 7-8 months he was stuck, and then he came back. He had also left ShareChat in between to pursue this idea. I was working on the co-living idea. Okay. And then in January of 2021, we met in a coffee shop. It was like, I think, third wave in Indiranagar. And then we started talking. And then he was like, okay, we already have a huge database of transactions. It was like, wow, because just to give you a little bit of context to it, understanding property valuation is not at all easy, because if you look at any kind of asset class in India, like what is an asset class? Asset class is where people put in money expecting it will grow, in layman's term. So the different asset class where people would put in money are either stocks or fixed deposit, or they would buy gold. Okay. Or real estate.
Yes.
Except for real estate, for all the asset class, you do not have to put in a lot of effort to understand the price. You go on the internet, you will see that 10 gram of gold costs 62,000 rupees. There is absolutely no debate over it. Right? If you want to go and check what is the share price of Reliance, it's 2,500 odd rupees. There is no debate. Like, we won't sit down and debate and say, I will say that, hey, the Reliance stock is 2,700 and you will say it's 2,300. There's no debate, because it's, you know it. There is someone who is willing to sell it at 2,500. There is someone who is willing to buy it at
2,500. Yeah.
Same goes for gold. But when you talk about real estate, right? I tell you that, hey, this is a property. What is the price of that property? You go to 20 people will say you 40 different prices. And that's how real estate transaction has been throughout centuries, that there will be 40 brokers who will tell you different prices, random people will tell you different prices. The incentives are not aligned. If I am in the market to sell, I will quote a higher price. If I am in the market to buy, I will quote a lower price.
Yes.
The funny thing here is, with stock, this was the situation 100 years back, because if you look at Bombay Stock Exchange is 150 years old. It started in 1870. The first stock exchange in the world was started in Scotland. That was 400 years back. There was no internet there. Like 100 years back, if you had to know the share price, you could not go to google.com and type what is the share price, right?
It was paper based.
Yes. And I could sell you a Reliance stock at 2,000. I could sell, someone else could be selling the same share at 3,000 to someone.
Yes.
And this is where real estate is today. So we are a little bit behind time here. So coming back to me meeting Abhilash, and the other point to note is that an Indian family, most of the Indian families would have the maximum proportion of asset in real estate. It's not gold, it's not stock, it's not fixed deposit. It will be in real estate. Like, most of the wealth is in real estate. So when you are putting most of your wealth in one particular asset class, then you want it to go right? Like 50 lakh house can be quoted 45 lakh and 55 lakh. 10 lakh is a lot of money. So then me and Abhilash started discussing, and then Abhilash was like, hey, the government of Karnataka has made property transactions detail public in 2018. And I was like, wow, okay, that any transaction that has taken place since 2008 was made public in 2018. And then we were sitting on a huge repository of data. So he had already built that initial model to predict property prices. It was very rudimentary from his end. He had already built that. And then he was like, let's work together. And when I kind of heard him, and first of all, I had known about this idea for a long time, because in US you have this company called Open Door. There are few other companies as well, like Zillow started doing the same thing, which is in a very similar business. Okay, but the fact is that for me to go and start, it would have taken a lot of resource. So because I had known the idea of Open Door, it was easy to relate. And then Abhilash was also like, buying and selling is definitely something that we should do, and let's work together. So I jumped the bandwagon, and I'm like, this is like 100 times, and I'm not exaggerating, or I'm not giving a figurative number. This is at least 100 times bigger than what I was thinking in co-living. That's a great business. But the opportunity in buying and selling is massive. So then we start, then it was that moment, that coffee discussion that was like, Ivy Homes is the thing that we should do. That time we had not come up with the name of Ivy Homes. The name that is used in US for similar business is called iBuying, which is instant buying, that if you want to sell a house, we are going to buy the house from you. So that was the time we were like, okay, this is the business that I want to build. So that was also the time I told you I had left ShareChat, but I was in constant touch with these people. And gradually, that was 2021, you have decided that you are going to start up, you have a wonderful idea, and the next step is funding. Okay, so we got into Y Combinator. Y Combinator is an incubator based out of US. So we were fortunate to get into Y Combinator, and then we ended up having some really stalwart investors in our cap table, starting from Venture Highway to Khosla Venture, to Rebright Capital, to Global Founders Capital, so many. But the one noteworthy point here is that Farid, who was my boss at ShareChat, he was one of the first person to commit before he had even known about anything. And the other person to commit was Arun Vellayan and Farid. Farid committed before he has even delved deep into the idea. He knew me very closely, he knew Abhilash very closely, and he was like, अच्छा तुम दोनों स्टार्ट कर लो तो मेरा पैसा तो लेना ही है. So the point why I am saying all these personal stories is that to start up there are a lot of things that should work in your favor. Obviously there's a limit to which you can fight, but you might be fighting a losing battle as well. And for me, what worked in my favor was getting the first investor right, who was so supportive, was getting the co-founder right, and then post that there's definitely a lot of interesting stuff that ended up happening. So this was the journey of starting Ivy Homes. And starting is not even doing the first transaction. The first transaction is, of course, a different story altogether.
So what I understand here, Pritam, is to build Ivy Homes, there's a lot of contribution from the right people. And any business, for that matter, requires the right people who can share the same vision. So when today you're growing to a 50 people company, and you hire a lot of talent, what are those qualities which the report cards or the grade cards of a person cannot tell? Which are those qualities that you look for in that person?
Well, the first thing is how much you know about the company when you come to an interview. Right,
Yes.
because I was on the other side of the table many times, and in a lot of cases that was like back in 2014, right, when I decided to leave my job in Gurgaon and then pursue. I myself know that there were a lot of companies I interviewed for about which I did not do any background research, to be very honest. But the one that I ended up going for, I had done a lot of background research. The reason for that is, see, we are a small scale startup and early stage startup. So anybody who ends up joining a company like ours can contribute a lot, at least from this scale, but at the same time can also mess up a lot. Okay, it's not like some big corporation where things, even if you mess up, it gets unnoticed. So for someone like us, it's super important that we will assess your skill set. We are going to take a formal interview, we are going to do case studies, everything is fine, but more and more so we need to be aligned that your heart is in the right place and you really want to work with us. We definitely do not want someone who will join our company and like a month later would start looking out for another job. Obviously the onus is also on us to ensure that they stay, but for us the first criteria, like obviously
To get started with that.
to get started is, have you done research about our company? And I think this is something that's going to be applicable for most of the companies,
Fair
not
enough,
just
yes.
ours. Going forward, there are few things which are necessary, and that is, see, as an individual, right, because we do not hire an individual, we get a new teammate. That's the perspective. So as an individual, there are certain basics that needs to be right, and that is this, that number one, given the nature of our business, okay, that's an combination of like modern hardcore technology and traditional conventional real estate business. Given the nature of our business, one thing that is super important is communication. And when I talk about communication, I definitely do not mean that you should know or speak one specific language, right? The idea behind any communication is that there's something in my mind and am I able to express whatever is on my mind to you. वो आप अंग्रेजी में बोलिए, हिंदी में बोलिए, कन्नड़ा में बोलिए, किसी भी लैंग्वेज में बोलिए, फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता, बट जो आपके दिमाग में है वो ज़ुबान पे है कि नहीं. For us, it's super important being able to communicate properly. And then post that, okay, it's very role specific. Okay, it's very role specific. For example, if you are in an analytics role, what is important is how you can, like, what is your grasp of numbers is. If you are in an operations role, we would check your vendor management skill set. If you are in a sales role, we are going to check certain aspect related to sales, because you have to be very quick on your thinking, right? Because the customers can ask you anything. Then everything, it's very role specific. फिर उसके बाद, see, once these things are cleared, the tables get turned. For most of the great candidates that we have, I think 30 minutes into the conversation, the candidate starts interviewing us that why should we join your company. But if the basics is set, then it's this.
Okay, and that reminds me, Pritam, that our students from PGDM, they had the opportunity to intern with your company during the internship period, and a few of them also got selected for the final placements. On going through your LinkedIn, I also came across this post which said this is the first time that internship program was initiated in the company. So, what was your experience with the students? Generally, we take their side of the story, but as a first-time founder working with the freshers, what was your experience? What stood out for you?
Yeah, so for us, this is how the stories span out. See, as a company, and what happens is that in a lot of cases, there are certain projects, certain activities that to a huge extent gets limited by the thought process of the founder. For us, in the first 1.5 years, we had grown to 30-35 people strong team, and we did not have a single fresher. And now looking back, it seems that it was such a limiting factor for us because you have grown and you don't have any fresher. The other reason might be, see, both me and my founder are in our 30s, and at that stage you also are probably comfortable in working with certain people. So having the interns from GIBS was the first time we worked with anyone without any work experience. Okay, and it was an internship program, total 10 people, 8 were from GIBS. And for us, we were like, chalo, this is a new project that we want to try out, which is also going to be an experiment. If this works out, great. And the best way we can pull this off is by having interns who can dedicate their time for 2 months. So then we ended up having all this super interns, right? And see, one thing I can tell you that probably we ended up learning more from them than the other way around, because this was the first time we were working with fresher, and to be honest, right, the kind of energy that they bring on the table is humongous. It's way more than what we guys can do. And when I talk about energy, right, it might mean a lot of things, because number one, ours is a company that requires you to keep on traveling all across Bangalore throughout the day. That makes you always be on your toes, because you might end up receiving a call from a client or a potential partner at any time of the day, and you have to be always proactive. Yeah, so for us, right, the kind of energy that they end up bringing is so huge. And till the time their internship was going on, we could feel that energy in office, because it was always bubbling with young talent. And for us, it was way beyond expectation, because we ventured into this thinking that okay, it's going to be a small project that we are going to try out for some time, but later on it ended up becoming way more interesting. And we do attribute a lot of our learning lesson to these guys. Okay, and the way it ended up changing our perspective is, definitely we are very fortunate to have 3 of these people join our company. But not just that, even after they left, because I guess that they will be joining in January, we ended up getting 6 more freshers from other colleges.
That's
so now
great.
we are super comfortable with freshers. It is a big deal for a company of our nature. It is a big deal. So that was what you guys ended up doing for us.
That makes me very happy to hear, Pritam, especially coming from you. I mean, as an institute, that is something we want all our kids to have success, to have this kind of appreciation from the companies that they venture out into. We'll be back with another power-packed episode of IRE Talks very soon. Wish you all the luck, Pritam, for Ivy
Thank
Homes
you.
and your
Thank
journey
you so
forward.
much.
A very big, huge thanks to all our audience, all our viewers who have supported us. And please do stay connected for more such episodes. Bye-bye.